Okay, so in this video we're going to be doing screen transitions, and this is the last video that we're going to wind up the year 2020 with. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing. So what I've created here is a start screen. All it has is the Mega Man title logo and some text here that says press any key. So let's play it. So what's going to happen is when we're in this, we're going to press any key, and then it's going to transition into the scene that we've been working with the whole time that we've been doing the series. And then our game basically starts. So it doesn't look like much, but it will open the door to be able to do more with our engine later. So we're going to switch to the previous project, and then we're going to start building this one out. So we'll be back in a sec. Okay, so we have our previous project open, which was the screwdriver tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to first get that out of the way, and we're going to get rid of our 3 screwdriver enemies. Now, to do this project and this scene switching, scene transition stuff, we're going to have to create a new scene first, and we're going to make some changes to some stuff, and we're going to basically like the game manager. We're going to create a couple scripts, and we're going to manipulate some stuff. So the first thing I think we should do though is we're going to make changes to the sound manager because right now it's basically kind of set up so it works with this scene that we're on, but we don't want that. So first thing we want to do is actually we're just going to get rid of the audio. So we don't want the clip to be set in there by default, and we're going to take off the loop. So that's the first thing that we're going to do with this. The second thing we're going to do with it is if you noticed in the main camera, it actually created this component on here called audio listener. And every time you create a new scene and it adds a main camera, it actually puts on this audio listener. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to we're going to add the audio listener to the sound manager and remove it from our cameras. So let's remove this. And then we're going to go over to the sound manager. And then we're going to add on audio listener. And we'll just shrink these up. And we'll just put that right there. So it's at the top. So then we're going to save that. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go into the prefabs folder and we're going to create a couple of folders. First folder we're going to do is we're going to call it players. Now, we don't have a prefab of our player, which we should have, because if we create more scenes, then we're going to end up having to recreate our player over and over, kind of like we would have to do with enemies or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a prefab of our player. So all we have to do is just drop our player in, and he's got all the elements and everything already set up for us. So second folder we're going to create is one called managers. So this is what we're going to drop in our game and sound managers and create prefabs out of those as well, so we can drop those into our scenes. So let's go into players folder, and drop in our player. And then we're just going to zero out the coordinates on him. And you can save that and go back. And then back here, we're going to go to the managers folder. We're going to drop in our game manager, and we're going to drop in our sound manager. So now that we have prefabs out of those, and then we can save this. Now the next thing we're going to do is, originally we called it scene setup. Well, we're going to change that. We're going to rename it. So we're going to go over to scenes and find our scene here, and we're going to rename it to main scene. And then it's going to ask you if you want to reload it, and you're just going to say yes. So now it's called main scene up here. And the one thing that we're going to have a problem, well, it's not a problem, but what it's going to do is, oh, it's weird. This time it didn't do it, but sometimes it was the backgrounds were out of order. So it's weird that it didn't do it this time. It did it all the other times. So what we're going to do on the backgrounds is all the highways. Right now we have the sky. Get that out of the way. The sky is on layer 0. The background, like the ground area, that we have on 1. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put the highways on 2 so that those are always in the front. So let's save that. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new empty, and we'll reset that. We're going to call this the same name as our scene. We're going to call it main scene. And the reason we do this is because we don't have to technically do this, but we're going to be creating a script called main scene that's going to be tied so that it has stuff that has to do with specifically to our scene. You could really attach it to anything if you wanted. You could attach it to the camera, or you could attach it to any of these. You can attach it to the canvas if you wanted, but I'm just going to attach it here. I wish you could actually attach a script to the scene itself, but you can't. But we're going to create an element or a game object here just called main scene so that we can put our script on that. So let's save that. Then we're going to go into the scripts. We're going to create a folder. We're going to call it scenes. And then inside of scenes, we're going to create two scripts there. So the first script is going to be called main scene, which is the scene that we're working with. And we're going to create another script that's going to be called title screen. Come on. And my laptop sucks. And of course it didn't do it. It choked. So we're going to delete that and we're going to try that again. So right click, create, and come on. All right, hold on. We're going to nuke it one more time. Okay, you done? No, you're not done. You're really crunching today. Okay, one more time. Title screen. Yay, I created it. Okay. So then this should fill in and hopefully the class is called that. Yes, all right, so good. So now we have those. So on our main or game object or main scene, we're gonna tie on that script. And so we can save that. And let me see, is there anything else? Okay, for this part, we are done with this scene. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create our new scene. We're gonna go over to the scenes folder. We're gonna right click, create, and we're gonna create a scene. And we're gonna call it title screen. And then we're going to open that up. So it doesn't look like anything's happened because I got to bring this over. So now we have a blank scene. So we're just going to shrink this down so we can kind of see what's going on a little bit. And first thing we're going to do on the main camera, we're going to get rid of the audio listener. And then we're going to change the properties of our camera. So it's going to be a solid color. We're going to make it all black. And we're going to change the size of it to 1.5 like our other camera and leave it at that. So then what we're going to do is over in the graphics folder, we're going to import a couple of graphics. So you're going to right click in there and you're going to say import new asset. And I have a couple that you can go, a couple images that you can go get off of GitHub to do this project. The first one's called Black Pixel. And the other one is called Title, which is basically the Mega Man logo. So we're going to import those. Okay, so now the title, we're going to leave everything default except we're going to change it to point no filter and no compression, and it's single, there's no frames on it, so we don't have to mess around with the sprite mode. And on the black pixel, we're going to change the units to 1 and point no filter and no compression and apply that. And so what we're going to do inside of here is we're going to right click and we're going to create an empty, we're just going to call it title screen. And then you can reset that. And just put that up on the top there. And then what we'll do is for right now, we'll just go to our scripts and attach that script to it. Next, we're going to right click again and we're going to create another empty. This one's going to be called backgrounds. And you can reset that. And then off of backgrounds, we're going to create a child of it, and we're going to just call it black back for black background. And then we're going to add on a sprite renderer, and we're going to choose our black pixel. And right now you can't really see it. We're going to move that over. So there's the black pixel, and we're going to just scale it to 10 on the X and the Y. So now it's basically, this is our camera here, and it's way around our camera. So we got plenty of room to work with there. So then we're going to create another element and off of backgrounds. We're going to call it title image and add on a sprite renderer, and then we're going to choose our title and for the sprite. So we're going to choose that and X out. So there's our title image. And we're going to put the Y on it to 0.5, so it's up a little bit above. So that's that. And then what we're going to do is we're done with the backgrounds. Well, actually, not quite. Black back, you can leave on layer 0. Title image, you're going to put to 1 just so it sits on top to be confirmed that it sits on top of the black background. And I should note that our camera is black, our background's black, and technically we don't really have to have a black background because we have a black cam. We haven't really set our camera to black, but if we ever want to change the color, then at least we stay black. So that's why I do that. You don't technically have to do this, but we're just going to do it just to be, just in case. And then we're going to right click over there. We're going to do UI, and we're going to add a canvas. And then on the canvas, we're going to scroll down, and where it says scale mode here, we're going to change to scale with screen size. And then off of the canvas, we're going to right click UI, and we're going to add on text using Text Mesh Pro. This is going to be for our press any key to start, our press any key. So right here, we're going to just change it to title text. And then we're going to click over here on the rect transform, and then we're going to pick this one in the top middle, and you're going to hold down Alt so it changes the pivot on it. So now it's at the very top, and what we'll do is actually scroll over here so you can see it. There. This makes this a little bit bigger. There. So there's our text. But before we go any further, we have our Mega Man font in a FODS folder. Now, what we're going to be doing is you're going to be learning something a little bit new. Text Mesh has a lot of cool features. One of those features is called rich text. It's almost like an HTML markup where you can actually do things like almost like HTML tags. So you can set font size, font names, colors, things like that. So we're going to make use of that in this video. Because when we press our any key and we see that it says press any key, it starts flashing. And what we're going to do to basically do that flashing is we're going to be changing the alpha of the string. So it goes in and out. Kind of like our flashing Mega Man player when he gets damaged, except we're going to be doing it through a Text Mesh Pro string with the rich text options. So with this, we're going to change the Y on the text to -250. We're going to stretch the width to 300. We're going to just change this string real quick to press any key. And we're not going to change that quite yet, but we'll change the size. And then we're going to change it to align in the center, baseline. And then we're going to basically, to be able to use rich text, we're going to take our font, let's move that out of the way, our Mega Man font here, and we have to actually drop it in the Text Mesh Pro fonts and materials folder. So otherwise you're going to see a bunch of, it's not going to understand where the font is. It needs to be in that folder. So we're going to make a copy of it. So let's just shrink that up. And we're going to go into fonts here. And we're going to drag that down there, use Control to make a copy of it. And we're going to drop a copy into that folder. So now if we go in there, Mega Man 2 is in there. So now from here, we have 2 of them. So you're going to see down here the location of which one. So this one is the one that's in the fonts folder, but we want this one here that's in the fonts and materials off of Text Mesh Pro. So So then you can X out of that. So there's our press any key right there. So this is all set except for one last thing. What we're going to do is we're going to change the material. So we're going to use text, go to select Text Mesh Pro, and then Mobile, and Distance Field, because this is the one we've already kind of set up. So it's already got all the other options like the underlay and stuff like that. So that's the material that we're going to use. So now the title text, it's ready to go. So we can save that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add in the game and the sound managers. So you can go over to your prefabs, managers. You can drag in the game manager and drag in the sound manager. And then we're just going to put that up there and that up there. And this is basically our scene. So we're going to save the changes on that. And we're going to, then we're going to look at doing some code. So hold on one sec. Let me just double check everything and I'll be right back in a minute. So there is one more thing I forgot to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to the main scene. So go to the scenes and double click on it so it opens up. Choose the player and we're going to move him up a little bit because after I made changes the first time around, his feet for some reason were kind of going a little bit below the camera. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put him up a little bit higher. I don't know why that was happening, but now he's up a little bit more above, so he'll still dart down, but we're just going to move him up a tad. So we can save that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make changes to the game manager. So we're going to go to scripts, open up the game manager script, and the first thing we're going to do to make this all work, and let me explain it real quick one more time. So we're going to start out on our title screen. So this is going to be the first scene that opens up. And what it's going to do is it's going to sit here and it's going to be waiting for us to press any key or some input. So once we do that, we're going to click it. It's going to play a sound. It's going to flash this text. And then when we decide that our time is up on the screen, it's going to go and tell the game manager, hey, we want the next scene to load. We're done here. And then the game manager will basically load the next scene. So that's what we're going to accomplish in this video. So over in the game manager, to be able to do this, we need a new variable here. It's going to be a bool. It's going to be called start next scene. And this is basically a flag. It's kind of like we've been using where once it happens, we only want it to happen one time. So because this runs in a loops, so many frames over and over and over, we only want it to happen one time, and that's why we need the flag, so it doesn't happen repeatedly. The next thing we're going to do is down here underneath of these floats, we're going to add in a public enum, and we're going to call it game states. And these are going to be the states that our game manager is going to run in. And these are going to have to do with actually the scene. So it's going to be the title scene or the title screen, the main scene. If we had you ran out of lives screen, all the screens for all the enemy levels, all kinds of stuff. So this is going to tell the game manager to know where it is and what it should be doing and what it should be managing. So the first one is going to be called title screen, and the next one is going to be called main scene. So we only have two. So for now, and then we're going to say public game states. We're going to create a variable of it called game state, and by default we're going to initialize to the title screen. Okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the stuff that we have down here at the bottom, starting at on enable. I just want to move this so it's up above. So we're going to cut this, and then we're going to go right above start. So right after awake, we're going to just drop it there. Because this is going to be called first, then this is when the scene terminates, and this is called second, this would happen third. So I just want to keep it all lump sum together at the top. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we need to create some functions for where these things are going to happen. So the first, what we're going to do is in the, let me see here. in the update function, we're going to switch off of our game state. And we're just going to fill these in after. So the first one's going to be if it's the title. Next one's going to be if it is the main scene, and if we have any other scenes, we would add to this later. And so we need this, and we're going to copy this so we don't have to type it out again. And then we're going to put that in on scene loaded as well. There. This we can get rid of, the start game. So we're going to get rid of that. And we're not going to get rid of this player ready though. We're going to move that somewhere else to a different function. So then what we're going to do is after update, I'm going to come down here, we're going to create a public void function, and that's going to be called start next scene. And this is basically going to be called from the scenes. And this is the way to tell the game manager, hey, start another scene. I'm done here. So all this is going to do is it's going to set our flag, start next scene to true. And that's all that's going to do. And then we're going to create 4 functions after that, 2 for each scene. So first one is going to be called start title screen. And then what we're going to have after that is one called, oops, inside, after. And then it's going to be called title screen loop. So this is going to be when the scene starts, and this is going to be what's going to happen in the update loop. So 2 for each scene. So private void, and we're going to say start main scene. And then we're going to say private void main scene loop. Oops. So there. So we have these 4 functions. So now inside of the on scene loaded, we're going to call our starts. So start title screen. So this should only happen once the scene is loaded. This is just like an initialization function. Start main scene. And then inside of our update, that's where the loops are going to happen. So we're going to have title screen loop. And then we're going to have main scene loop. Okay. And then what we'll do is our start game. This is actually not going to have anything in it, but our title scene, we will have something in it, but we're going to start with the main one because we already have the code for that. So we're going to take what's in our start game here. We're going to move that to our start main scene because this is what happens when this is basically the same thing that was like start game. So we're going to put all the initialization for the scene here instead. And so that will get called up here when the scene gets loaded. So then we're going to take our main game loop for the scene, for the main scene. We're going to cut that out and we're going to drop that into the main scene loop. And you can save that. So then we got to do our title scene. So this is our start and then the loop itself. So all we do is just move them into different functions. Now in our start title scene, if we were to have, for instance, music that we wanted to start playing right away, we would put it here. And kind of like what we're going to be doing down here with the main scene. Now we already took out the reference to the music clip that was originally playing, but we're actually going to be setting it through here. So that's the point of the initialization. And then in the title scene loop, though, what we're going to do is we're going to be checking for if a new scene has been called for. So if start next scene is true, which means this title screen says, hey, you can go and start the next scene, So we're going to say start next scene is false, so it doesn't happen again. It only happens one time. We're going to change our game state, and then we're going to change it to which state? Well, we want after the title screen, we want it to become the main scene. That's the next scene that we want to go to after the title. Normally, after the title, you might go to a level select, and then you pick an enemy, and then we'll go to that scene after that for that level. But for right now, we're going from title just to our main scene. And like I said, this is a kind of like an introductory video, and we can build upon this later. Then we're going to say scene manager, and we're going to load the scene. And what we're going to load is actually the name of the scene, and we renamed it from scene setup to main scene. So that's the scene that we want to load. So this is the title screen loop. And all that's going to happen in a loop is going to wait for the next scene to be called. And once it gets called, it's going to load the next scene. This loop will then go to here. Well, actually, it's going to go to start scene, start main scene, because this scene gets loaded. It's going to run all this. And then after that, it's going to go to the main scene loop and the update loop. So that's kind of how it works. If I had a flow chart, I'd show you, but that's basically how it's going to work. So with this, we are pretty much done, I believe, except for this part here, but we can't do this music part yet until we build the other files out. So we have those two other scripts that we created in the scenes folder. First one is the main scene, the other one's the title screen. So let's do the main scene first. And so inside the main screen, or main scene, I mean, what we're going to do is we're going to have a public reference to our music clip. So audio clip, we're just going to call it music clip. And we're going to save that. There are going to be actually a few more things that we're going to be doing in this file, but I'm going to show you when that time comes. And it actually has to do with our transitions. So because we have the transition tied to use the game manager, and because of switching scenes, that reference that we're using doesn't work anymore. And so what we're going to do is we're going to fix that over in here. But for right now, we're just going to do the audio clip. So now if we go to our main scene, oops, not there, the actual main scene, load that up, and then go to the main scene object here. And now you're going to see we have a music clip option. So in the inspector, we're going to go over to audio, music, and we're going to drag over our music clip there. So then you can save that. Now back over in code. Now we don't care about this because this has already been referenced now. What we want to do is go back over to the game manager. And inside of our start main scene, we're going to add some more stuff to this. So what we're going to add is we're going to call the sound manager instance music source dot clip. We're going to assign the clip, and to assign the clip, we're going to use game object dot find. And what are we going to be looking for? We're going to be looking for main the main scene game object that we created. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the get component to get the main scene script. And what's on that script is that audio clip, which is called music clip. So we're going to assign the music clip to the sound manager's music source clip. And then we're going to set the volume. So you can see how you can set the volume in case you didn't know. And so we're going to use volume, and we're going to set it to 3/4, so 0.75. Then we're just going to copy that. And if you didn't know how to set it to loop, then you're just going to call the loop property. You're going to set it to true. So this is the initialization for the music. So we assign it to the sound manager's music source clip, and do the volume, set the loop. You can actually put this in 1 if you want for full blast, and then loop it, and then start playing it as soon as the scene starts. So that's that. And then we're going to work on the title next. So the title scene. So this is our new scene. So we need to open that script. All right, so now in this script, we're going to be defining a bunch of variables. But before we define them, we need to actually import some things, namespaces here. So the first one we want is system, and we need to import Text Mesh Pro because we're going to be using that for the press any key. So variables, we're going to start with our Text Mesh Pro GUI, and that's going to be called, we're going to call it TMP for Text Mesh Pro, and then it's called title text because that's going to be the press any key. Then we need a flag here that's called next scene, and this is going to be our way for our scene here to say, hey, did we call the next scene? And if that was the case, then we'll perform an action on that. Then we're going to have another bool, and it's going to be called input detected. We're going to initialize it to false by default, that we haven't detected any input yet. Then we're going to define an integer that's going to be called alpha key press text, and we're going to set that to 255, so that's fully opaque, so it's not transparent yet. So alpha key press text. Then we're going to create a public audio clip, and that's going to be called key press clip, and that's going to be the sound file that we play once we press any key, which is kind of like a start sound. Then we're going to create an enum called title screen states. And title screen states is going to have just 2 states. Now we can have multiples, but we only need 2. One state is with the first one that's going to start out as. It's going to be called wait for input. And then the next state will be, okay, now we switch to the next scene. And so of title screen states, we're going to say title screen state, and that's going to be defaulted to wait for input. Okay. Then we're going to create a string, but we're going to have 2 versions of this string. So the first string is going to be, well, we're going to call it's going to have the same name, and it's called key press text, and it's going to be say press any key. So we're just going to copy that, and then this one's going to be called tap to start. So this is for the mobile version, and this is where the platform directives will come into play. So what we want to do is look for if Unity is standalone. So if it's Unity standalone, and if it's going to be found if Unity Android or Unity iOS. So if we switch our platform to become Android or iOS, it's going to use this version of the string. It's not top, it's tap. Tap to start. It'll use this version of string. Otherwise, if it's on standalone, so like Windows, Mac, desktop, Linux, desktop, it's going to use this string instead. Okay. So then we need an actual string itself. That's like an insert. And we're going to say string of title text. And this is actually going to be the rich text that we're going to use for Text Mesh Pro. So we're going to do a literal here, and that's going to be font. And you can look this up. I'll see if I can find the link in the where you can see all the text mesh rich text options for Text Mesh Pro. I'll see if I can put that in my description somewhere. So font is equal to, we're going to terminate double quote. So that gives us a quote, and then we're going to say, oops, size is equal to 18, and then color is going to be equal to, and RGB, and then alpha. But what we're going to do is we're going to be setting the alpha. So we're going to say 0x2, So we know that we have it as an integer here, and when we pass this to the string, it's actually going to convert it to hexadecimal for us using the string format. So that's how we're going to do that. So we don't have to convert it ourselves, we're going to let string format do it for us. The next parameter, which is actually going to be the insert text. So this is going to be, this placeholder here is for the alpha key press, and then this placeholder here is going to be for the insert key press text. Okay, so then we're going to say we're going to close off color, we're going to close off size, and we're going to close off font. So this is our rich text string. So we're going to say what font we want to use, which is called megaman_2, the size we want to set it to, and the color. And we're going to be passing the transparency value and the insert for what we want to show on the screen depending on our platform. Okay, so then that's it for the variables. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to use an awake. And inside of awake, we're going to get a handle to our title text. And to do that, we're going to use GameObject find. And what we're going to be looking for is title text. That's the name of our object. And then we're going to use get component and text mesh pro GUI. So that's our text mesh pro object that we're going to be doing, working with. Inside of our start, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the parameters for how we want our text to be. So title, text, we're going to set the alignment, and the alignment options and center. Then we're going to copy that. We're going to drop that in. Well, technically one more time. The alignment, the second alignment we're going to use is midline. And the third one here is not going to be actually alignment, but it's going to be font style, which is down there. And our font style is we're going to use is uppercase. So we're going to force it to always be uppercase. Uppercase right there. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to default our, just in case, our screen state is going to be equal to wait for input. So that's where we're going to be starting. Did I set that? Yeah, I did up here, but just in case, it's going to be defaulting to wait for input here. So we force it. And then what we're going to do is in our update, we're going to switch on our title screen state. We only have two states. So our first state that we're going to be looking for is wait for input. And our next one is going to the next scene. So inside of wait for input, we're going to set the text string. So we're going to say TMP text title dot text is going to be equal to using string dot format, and that's why we imported the system namespace so we can use string format and string. So we're going to say title text. This is our first parameter, and then we're going to pass the parameters that are going to basically be the inserts. So the first one is going to be the alpha key press text, which is the color, and then the actual string itself that we want to be shown on the screen. So when this is all done, it'll basically fill in those blanks, and then this will be the text that shows up on the screen. And then what we're going to do then is we're going to check for input. So here's a new one. In case we've been using like literal keys that we wanted, but we're going to be using this one called any key, which they can press any key to start the game. So, and we're going to be checking that the input has not been detected yet. So we need that. It's very important because we only want this to happen one time. So once it happens, we're going to say input detected is now true, so that this code doesn't run again. We only want it to happen once. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start a coroutine, which we're going to build after this. So we're going to start a coroutine, and we're going to call it flash title text. There. Then what we're going to do is we're going to call the sound manager to play our sound. And like I said, this is only going to happen once, so it should only play the sound once. And we're not looping it or anything like that, so it's not music, it's just a sound. So we're going to say play, and it's going to be the key press clip. So that is basically what happens when we're waiting for input on the screen. And then what's going to happen then is we'll come back to filling in the next scene because we want to do the key press so you can see actually what happens there. So we're going to say private I enumerator, and we're going to call it what? Flash title text. And we're going to go down there, and we're going to flash the text 5 times. So we're going to say for int I equals 0, and then I is less than 5, and I increment. Inside of here, we're going to say our alpha is going to be equal to 0. So we're going to basically make it transparent. And then what we're going to do is we're going to yield. So we exit out. So yield, return, new, wait for seconds, like we've been doing in other videos. We're going to wait for 1/10 of a second. Or 0.1, I don't know if that's really 1/10, but 0.10. We're going to copy that, those 2 lines, and then we're going to change this 0 to 255. So it's basically going to go transparent, opaque, transparent, opaque, just like what we did with the Mega Man himself when he flashes and he gets hit with damage. On, off, on, off, on, off, or off, on, basically. And then what we'll do down here, outside of that, we're going to drop it one more time, and we're going to make it so that it goes off permanently. So we're going to hide it. And then what we'll do here is after this, when it comes back after this yield, we're going to say the title screen state is going to be equal to the next screen, the next scene. So there, now we changed scenes. So now we haven't changed scenes quite yet, but we're telling ourselves that we want to go here. So now it's going to switch to this state. And inside of this state, we're going to check and see if we haven't called it yet, which we haven't. And we're going to call the game manager, the instance, and we're going to say start the next scene. And then as this runs repeatedly, we're only going to do this 1 time. So then we're going to say it's going to be equal to true. Not false, but true. So this only happens once, and it's going to call this only once, and then it's going to jump over to the game manager. And where is that at? Well, inside the game manager, if we go over to it, we were in the loop and the title screen. Oh, we called it up here. Where's that at? It was right after this here. So we called this. It's saying now it's true on our loop. Oh, now it's true. We set it to false, so it only happens 1 time. We change our state, and then we load the next scene. So that's basically what will happen. So that is our title. So now if we go over to here and open up our title scene, and then go to this object here, we have a key press audio clip that we haven't set yet. So we're going to go over to audio and sounds, and inside the sounds here we have this one called game start. Actually, before we do that, let's play it. So that's what's going to play when we press any key to start. So go back to that, and we're going to drag that there. Cool. So now let's just try it out real quick. Let's save this. We still have to make some changes to the main scene, and I'm going to show you why actually right now. So let's see if this actually works. So we're going to start this up. Okay, so we switch here. So our game manager, sound manager are in this don't destroy on load. So now they're going to be static across scene switching. And then we have this here, which has our sound file, our camera, etc. So I'm going to press any key, or actually I'm just click the mouse. And it switched over to the next scene. And then you see here, now we're on the main scene. Let's just pause that real quick. Now we're on the main scene. These are still here, but when our scene loaded, and we go to the sound manager, you'll see that, I don't know if it's this one or the other one. No, it's this one. It set our music file and it put it on loop, and we already had it on 0.75, but it would have changed the volume 0.75 if it wasn't. So it filled all this in that start main scene function. So now we're going to expand this, and if you look in the transition, and come down here to camera, you're going to see that the game manager, it's not working right. And I don't have an exact reason why, but I think it just has to do with when the scene loads. This wasn't technically attached anymore, so it loses it. And we're going to have a remedy for that in a sec. So let's do this. So we're going to go. So our scene is just like any other scene. But if we go over to our transition here, we used to have a thing that said checkpoint reached. That is no longer there, and that's what we're going to fix next. So instead of having that, let me just get this out of the way. Instead of having that inside of Game Manager, we're going to put that on our main scene instead, that code. So we're going to go over to main scene, which is what we are on, and we're just going to expand the transitions here. We're going to see it's still set on the game, but it loses that. So we're going to go over to our script, and over in the Game Manager here, we're going to go down and get that bit of code. And that is down here somewhere. I think it's after this. Destroy, yeah. So here's the checkpoint code that we created in the transition video. So we're gonna, the camera transition video. So we're gonna cut that. And then you can save it, and then we're gonna go over into the main scene, and we're gonna just put that after the update. So there. Now we have this problem. Okay, well, we don't have any of this reference anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to the Game Manager. We're just going to copy. We have that right there. So we need that reference. We'll just put that above that. And it's still not going to work because we have to import that namespace. And then we're going to go over to the Game Manager again. And then we're just going to get the, where is that at? That's over in here. So we're going to put this in the awake function on the main scene, which we haven't created yet. So we're just going to say void awake. And then we're going to import using Text Mesh Pro. Boom. So those errors will now disappear. Everything is good here. We will save it. And if we go back over, when it's done compiling, we're going to start up our title screen. Bring this over. We're going to start here again. Okay, I'm going to just press enter. Our scene loads. All right, and then we're going to get all the way to the end again. Now we should have our, actually, once again, I forgot. So open up the main scene, expand the transition, highway 3, and then down here, what we're going to do is we're going to drag on main scene instead of the Game Manager there. And under functions, we're going to go to main scene and we're going to choose the checkpoint reached from that. And then you can save it. And then we're going to start with the title scene again, title screen. Run that. And once it runs, there we go. Press enter. All right, so now I'm going to go all the way to the end. Now we should have a checkpoint reached message like we used to have. And let's get to the end. And there it is. So we fixed that problem. So now we can stop that. And let's see, I believe there's one more thing. 1 minute, please. Yes. So now we have a new scene, and we want to test this this code here, the platform dependent, which message is going to show. So what we'll do is you're going to go to File and Build Settings. Now, right now, this is the only scene that we have in here. So what we want to do is we're going to add open scenes. So then it brings in our title screen, and we want to just drag that. You can make that one the first one. So it starts there, and then after that, Game Manager is going to depend on which one's going to happen next. So what we'll do is we're going to go over to Android and switch platforms so we can check out our platform dependent string to make sure it says tap to start instead of press any key, because you don't really have any keys when you're doing it from mobile, unless you got one of them slide out keyboard things or Bluetooth keyboard. All right, so then we're going to close that, and now we're going to run it. It's on Android right now, and now it should say, now it says tap to start. So, and that's what I was talking about right there. He's, for some reason, I think it actually has to do with the landscape. So maybe, I don't remember if we moved him up yet. I think we did. There. Yeah. So we need to move him. If we hadn't, I think we did. I thought we did. So main screen, not the code, the actual scene. And then go to our player. No, we did. So it must not be landscape. So portrait, this one. Well, let's see. That's not a big deal. We can always change that later. I mean, we can have them go up even higher if we need. So let's play it. You have to have them go up a little bit higher, but there we go. So I think it's more like this. That's the right one. So there you go. That is that's scene transitions. So I know it doesn't look like much. We're just starting with this basic, but it's going to lead into being able to do a lot more with this. So the next video in 2021, what I want to do is a little cinematic approach of doing timelines. So what I think we'll do is we'll have a different scene that will be right after this title screen, and maybe a little bit of dialogue that will lead into going into the level. So I haven't really thought it out completely yet, but we're going to do timelines. And just to give you a heads up, it's not going to be using the Unity timeline tool. I've tried using it, and I don't know. I like doing things the hard way, I guess, but I don't like it all that much. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do it the old school way of using ifs and timeline checks and this and that, so that we have events happen within those specific times. And that's basically how I did it with the graveyard battle, where I basically the first minute and a half or 2 minutes where it was entirely a storyline. And the thing about it also is with the timeline, Unity's timeline tool, if you have things like physics for jump, I don't know exactly how you get that to go unless you have to use signals, but like I said, I haven't gotten too deep into it. I don't really want to get that deep into it. And I do my own way. So you can go and learn how to do it, but for my video, we're going to be doing it through ifs and timeline checks. So you'll see that in the next video when 2021 starts. So if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. We're going to keep building Mega Man until we cover at least a whole lot of the elements. We'll be able to build a clone of it, and we're not going to do an entire clone. We might just do like one level, the Bomb Man level, possibly. We'll see. And so source code is going to be available up on GitHub. Link will be in the description. I'll see if I can find the link to the rich text tags so you can play around with that. And if you don't put it in the fonts and materials folder, try using it. You'll see what I'm talking about, why it doesn't work. So just if you ever see that and you see why it doesn't work, that's why. It's because you have to put your font into that folder because that's where it's looking to see if the font for the font tag. So just keep that in mind. So that's it for 2020. Thank God. It's been a really rough year, I think, for all of us, and hopefully 2021 is a lot better. And so stay safe out there. Happy New Year, and I will catch you in the next year. Bye.